My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for the fearless Dave DeWindt. And if you've ever wondered how a former hotel manager ditched the 9-to-5, mastered the art of high-end real estate flips, and is now on a mission to create a real estate empire that's anything but passive, today's guest, Nathan DeWindt, is here to spill the secrets of his success, from hyper-focused buy boxes to scaling a business from 4 to 12 flips a year. Nathan's journey is a blueprint for anyone looking to break free from the traditional and embrace the entrepreneurial path. Nathan, welcome to the show. Thrilled to have you here.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no problem. I'm always interested in the luxury flips. So I know a couple of people in my market who have dabbled in that game, and you can win big and you can lose big. Luxury flips, you didn't start there. So tell me, where did you get your start in real estate?
Yeah. So like you had mentioned, I used to be a hotel manager. And so it just kind of became a natural progression that every couple of years you get moved somewhere else. And so I was moving around a lot. You have to do that in order to work your way up in the hotel business. And so every time I would move somewhere, I would buy a property, rehab it if it needed it. And then when I would move on to the next job, into the next city, the next state, I would then rent that out. And so once I saw the tax benefits of owning real estate, I thought, oh man, this is where the ticket is. And so the idea was to continually build real estate in the background while holding my 9-to-5. And then as it got more and more lucrative, and when I sold my very first rental that I had ever had in Colorado, I went, oh man, like I made 60 grand on that. It was all tax free. I rented it out, made $30,000 in passive income that entire time. That was tax free. And when I saw that, the light bulb kind of went off, and that's when I started my transition out of hotels, and just kept building real estate on the side until it hit a point where I wasn't making what I made in hotels, but I'm a huge fan of not holding your 9-to-5 to grow your real estate. I know that's kind of controversial to a lot of people. They say have a side hustle until it makes more than what you currently make. I disagree with that. I think if you're taking a 40, or in my case, it was a 60 to 70 hour week, if I can dedicate 60 to 70 hours to real estate, there's no way that I'm going to fail. And so it kind of took the markets dictating that for me. COVID was a huge thing to push me into full-time, never looking back. But once I did, everything ramped up so fast, because now I was focusing 60 hours a week on real estate instead of 5 or 10. And I don't think that this is an industry where if you're focusing 5-10 hours a week on it, that you're really going to scale it to a point that you want it to get to get the wealth that you've had your eye on. So
yeah, there's a couple of thoughts. I always say, like, the 9-to-5 transition is when it gets in the way of your other business, then it's time to start thinking about, stepping out of your 9-to-5. But you touched on something interesting there, and you said, well, if I gave myself 60 hours a week in real estate, how could I fail? But you're not the average bear, Nathan, because a lot of people quit their 9-to-5 and still only put in 5 hours and think it's going to work.
Yeah.
So you do have to go to work on whatever it is you do in this world. So you end up, COVID has you, I guess, because the hotels are not really a thing. Hotels were very, very strange. It's shared accommodations during a pandemic. So did that have you, did you just decide, hey, I'm out, and you walked off and really dived in? Or did the thing force your hand in that way? Like, did the situation just say, enough's enough?
It was kind of both. So I'd left hotels. I was focused on real estate, and then I got a call from a headhunter trying to get me back into the game. And I said, no, that's in my past. Then the salary that they offered was something I couldn't say no to. And so it drew me back in. But honestly, from day one, when I stepped foot on the ground in the new location in Southern California, I went, this was a huge mistake. And so I was already trying to work myself back out. I had already known this isn't going to, bode well for my future, but I didn't want to let anybody else down and set them up for failure. So I went, I'm going to give them 6 months. I'm going to set everything up, and then that way I can walk away. Well, in month 4, COVID hit, and it kind of did it for me. So I was already on my way out. I had already made the decision. So it was both. And then, yeah, once COVID hit, it went, we're making the decision final for you. Now you can head back to Texas. And so I did. And then that's where it took off. And so I know, back to the previous question you had asked, I think it's really important. And I kind of leave this out when I'm talking to people a lot, but you kind of asked if you didn't start here, how'd you get into luxury? I found that when I first started flipping and renovating, I was doing it like everybody else did in, first time home buyer, median home price range. And I kept over renovating properties, spending too much money. Yeah. My profit margin started to shrink. And I went, man, why is this so hard for me to do the minimal amount and get a higher return? And I went, well, because I was raised with a general contractor as a father who only did high-end homes in Southern California. And so I went, well, that's why. I've been around this since I was 12 years old. I know what high-end looks like. It's all I know. And so instead of fighting my own personality, that was kind of the number one thing. I went, that's what I want to do. And that's what helped me make the leap. Was my skill set is geared toward that. So that's where I should go. And so even if you don't want to do luxury, I encourage a lot of people that I talk to, of whatever your natural skill set is, don't fight it. We like to fight things to fit the box of what every other entrepreneur or investor is doing. And I always tell people, don't do that. For me, my background was luxury. It's all I knew. And so once I pivoted to that, then I started hitting it out of the park, and I went, got it. So it is scarier. It's higher numbers, but like anything else in real estate, bigger renovation, bigger budgets, longer timelines. But like we were always taught when you first get into investing, it's just another zero. And once you capture that, it's just another zero. It's all the same thing. It's same with, I still have hesitation in doing multifamily. When I look at people taking on 400 unit properties, in my head, my first reaction is kind of being timid. And then I remind myself, hey, it's just another zero. And when you look at it that way, then it's easier. So sorry, long-winded way to get back to your first question, but.
Yeah, no, definitely, like the luxury flip thing, there's something that happens that people have like a natural, like internal congruency. They're like, if you grew up with the front door having a brass handle and a silver lock set, when you flip your house, you might overlook that detail when you're finishing your flip. You're like, what's the big deal? My house growing up had a silver lock and a brass handset, so I'm going to overlook that piece. But where you come from and your attention to what is normal drove you to the luxury flip thing, which is really cool. And also, you probably get the budget that you want to feel good about. I mean, do you end up over renovating in your luxury flips?
So yes and no. Sometimes I will, but what I always tell people, the difference is in luxury, you cannot over renovate. So I'll go over budget. Yeah. I'll do things that I maybe shouldn't have done, but you get that back. You get that back at appraisal. You get that back in offers over ask. You get that money back, because people that are in the high end space, and I'll make a key differentiation here in a second, but people in that class will pay for the higher finishes. So in the median class, you might over renovate a house that's a $350,000 ARV, and it's a $375,000 house. Well, the people in that market and in that neighborhood are looking to pay $350,000. So you won't get it back out. But when I'm selling a house, and in South Texas, my focus is $750,000 to $1 million, and I'll go up to about 1.2. Anything higher than that is a different realm that I'll get into here shortly. But if I'm over renovating a house that I think, hey, is worth $850, and I take it up to $900, I'm getting offers at $925. So if I do over renovate it, like I put pools in a lot of my homes, and people will tell you that all the time. Hey, you don't get your money back when you put a pool in. It's a wasted expense.
Then come to Texas.
Yeah, come to Texas and see. Yeah, but when you put that in, and I've got my budgets down pretty low, where I can do a plunge pool for about $35,000, and I can do a traditional gunite pool for about $50,000. And so every appraiser will tell you, you don't get that money back. Well, I can tell you, based on experience in the higher end homes, you do. If I put a pool in and it's a $50,000 pool, I'm getting a minimum double the value every time.
Just go to the Google satellite and you'll realize, take a look. For people at home who want to understand that, go to any town or city in Texas and find the cheapest neighborhood, and you'll find above ground pools, the circles, and you go to the most expensive neighborhood and you just satellite over, and it's nothing but bigger and bigger and bigger pools. So while that advice about pools, like if you're in like Nebraska or Kansas City or something, pools can sometimes make a buyer hesitate, but in weather like California and Texas and stuff, and even in like Georgia and places where it gets hot. It's a especially, what's interesting is you nailed it, because the thing in the luxury flip is it's like a status symbol. They may never even go in it, but they got it,
Mm-hmm.
you
And it
know?
shows well. It photographs well.
Well, yeah, it's like a resort. They want to, they may never go in it, but they're definitely going to sit around it and have a guy to come and clean it. So,
Yeah.
and I like what you said too. It's like if you press into a $350,000 house for 375, say you like put that tile in that you really want and you fall in love with the house a little bit, you're not going to get the juice back out. But if you press on 850 to like 900, you will get 925, because the people in that range recognize, oh, look, it's that type of tile. It's that type of um particular shape of tile in the kitchen. Like they're watching, it's in that magazine that they were reading on the airplane. Like it's a whole different attention to, what's the word? Not craft, but finish. It's an
Yeah.
attention to finish, where it's not just about how well it's done in the 350 range, but also now what you've actually put in, how well the floors were installed, super important at 350 and also at 900. But now it's like, what was installed
Mm-hmm.
and how can I brag to my friends about that floor? What is it? Is it imported from somewhere, this, that, and engineered this? So, um, how many of those luxury flips are you turning in a year these days?
So when I first got into it, it was one at a time. I was doing 2 to 3. The average profit margin on the ones that I do is about 140,000. So I didn't have to
Yeah.
do more than that to still make a decent living. Obviously, you want to make more and more and grow and grow and grow
Yeah. If
and
you can
scale.
handle it, scale it out.
Yeah. And so I had a shift in a lender that now offers 100% loan to cost. And that kind of changed everything for me. And so now I've got 4 going right now. And so
They're
that's where that
financing
goal,
the whole. They're financing the whole thing. The buy, the
the
finance, like
rehab.
the lawyers, the rehab, the holding costs, everything.
Yeah, so I'll maybe come out of pocket. So I used to on a purchase of say 50,000, I'd have to bring 120,000 to the table and then
Mhm.
have to cover the rehab 140,000 out of pocket. I could still take the draw at the end, but I'm still looking at 350, $360,000 that I've got to have at my disposal to do it. Well, now with that lender doing 100% LTC, I'll close on a $515,000 property like I did last month, and I gave 9,000 in earnest up front to the wholesaler.
Mhm.
At closing, title sent me money because my closing costs were 5,200. So they had to write me a check for almost $4,000 at closing, and that's the difference. And so now all I have to do is cover the rehab. So now when I'm putting in money for the 150,000 in rehab, that's the only expense I have per property. So now I can really, really scale. And then by the
Mhm.
time I'm done with that work, I take the draw anyway. So my money's only out for a 2 month cycle. Then I take the draw, get that money back, roll that into the next one and the next one and the next one. And I've got them all concurrently going, but about a month apart. And so that is the thing with luxury, and at least my personality, again, of not fighting your own personality, I can't multitask. When I multitask, I've got 4 projects going. I focus on one for 3 days, then the next one for 3 days, then the next one for
Mhm.
3 days. And for me, that's multitasking, and that's getting them, going concurrently. But I cannot, for the life of me, actually multitask. I don't think a lot of
Like
people can.
jump from property to property to property all day.
Yeah, like you're trying to manage 4 at the same time, and I am a firm believer but that's impossible. You're literally just shifting your focus. It's in how quickly can you shift your focus from one to the other, and can you do that all in one day? For me, I'll spend one whole day, and that's how I schedule my time is, okay, on Tuesday all day I'm in New Braunfels, Wednesday all day I'm in Canyon Lake, Thursday all day I'm in San Antonio. And that's how I compartmentalize my schedule to be able to do multiple projects at a time. So yes, I can do them all at the same time, but to to think that I can drive, if I drove to all of my properties in one day, it'd be 350 miles.
I was
So
just
you
gonna
can't
say,
do it.
because I remember when I was flipping 12 properties at the same time, and these were like lower median under the 200 range. They're all over town, and it's not a huge market that I'm in, but um, wake up, get to the office, get in the car, meet the contractor on project one, and this might only be like a part in the pipeline where I have like 7 going. And even 7, it's like 20 minutes there, 20 minutes in, 20 minutes out, 20 minutes there, and the day's done, and listening to the way you're doing it is like, I probably could have pushed my projects by just giving each of them a day, instead of giving each of them 20 minutes, which didn't actually like, because to break it down for people, like when I hear that, I think, okay, that's a cool idea. But once I go and look at the house and walk around, what then do I spend the rest of my day on?
Yeah, so I'm highly active. So I have found in luxury, and I know we kind of talked about this earlier, off camera, but I'm very active in my business, and so I'll be there where if I'm tearing out a load bearing wall in a 2-story house that's $1 million home, you can
Mm-hmm.
bet I'm going to be there for the entire thing. As much as I trust my contractors, you got to check what you expect, and so
Like
I'll go in
as a
there
site supervisor, you're not putting your
100%.
hands on it, but you're standing there with the coffee going, looks good.
Yeah, well, I'll go the next step, like because I will be involved in it, where I trust my framers; they know what they're doing, but it's not their butt that's on the line; it's mine. And so
Yeah.
I'll have my engineers come out, and I get scope letters and letters of completion so that they're signing off and taking liability. But even when you look at those letters from engineers, they're very skirting when they write their assumption letters. They'll
And the little
still
stamp, poof.
yeah, they'll stamp it, but they're still saying, I'm approving the design, but I'm not approving of the workmanship or the craftsmanship. So if it's not installed correctly, then I'm
It's
not taking
on the
responsibility.
contractor.
It's on the
Yeah.
contractor, which then puts it on me. And so I'm there. And so if I see something that's off, or I see something like a jack stud is only 1 and it should be 2 because of
Mm-hmm.
the load bearing that we're doing with 2 LVLs over a 21-foot span, you need 2 jack studs, not just 1. And so I'll
Yeah.
see that they'll frame it with 1 because that's what they're used to doing with normal headers. And then I come in and go, nope, add another one, add another one.
Yeah. Look at the
So
plans. Here's the engineering drawing. There's 2. Let's go.
yep, that or screw patterns with construction with screws or nail patterns. They're called out on those plans, and a lot of times those guys will just sit there and they're just boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, guys, it says 12 inches, every 12 inches offset to make triangle shape, and it's things like that that no matter how good your contractors are, even if you go over it with them on the plans, like I do, they resort back to what they know. And for them,
Their
it's
natural
every
state.
16 inches, they put 6 of them in a vertical row. And it's like, that's not what the engineering plan is called for. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing on my days when I'm showing up, is I'm looking at the fine detail of that construction, because if that second story ever comes down, that's a $3 million lawsuit
Or
coming to
even just
me.
starts to like, nothing's worse than taking out that load bearing wall, and then a year later it's just slumping a bit, and it's just like, okay, $1.2 million in the floor upstairs doing this, and it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, because it was supposed to be 2 and not 1, and so the thing is sinking or whatever. It just wasn't attention to detail. So that's interesting. So you frame out your projects in like blocks, and because it is a little bit of a fallacy that men can multitask like that. Like apparently women have the ability to like carry that many things, and perhaps the driving to every project for 20 minutes would work, um if it was a woman doing it. But when I find that as a man, it's just like, I'm on this rail and I have to get off it and change tracks. And that does take a certain amount of like changing of gears. So getting into it, staying in it allows you to focus. So what about what happened? What about let's say you're in the other project and something's going on, you have to go over there and deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is a lesson I'm slowly learning. I'm not the best at it yet, but we talk about this. I'm a part of another like mastermind group, and one of the lessons over the last month has been nothing's a true emergency. And so I've been trying to wrap my head around that, because when I get a call and they say, hey man, we hit the plumbing main, we shut the water off, we need you down here because we don't know how I don't really need to be there. What am I going to do? They shut the water off. The house needs to dry out anyway. So with a phone call, I can say, hey, go to Home Depot, go grab 5 box fans and dry it out, and I'll meet you guys there on Wednesday like we had planned. And
Mm-hmm.
it's hard because you sit there going, man, I'm paying daily interest of $275 a day on that house and $350 a day on that house. And so it does add up, but nothing's a true emergency that
Oh, it's an emergency to them, right?
To them, yeah. And I've realized, and my dad actually taught me this, is he went, take how much money you make for an entire year,
Mm-hmm.
divide that by normal hours that you would have worked in a 9 to 5 job, and figure out your hourly wage. And if you leaving the project you're on to go fix that is cheaper than hiring, say, a plumber to come out and emergently fix it, go. If when you do that math, you're going to be out at that property for 5 hours times your wage, and a plumber can fix it for $800, and you just call them, yeah, it's an $800 hit, but you're making, say, and this isn't my actual number, but say you're making $1,500 a day based on what you're making annually. Well, it doesn't make sense to go do that. So I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten better at that, of when I get that phone call from the other property, knowing it might delay the project, which, yeah, in the end, it makes it more inefficient, which drives me nuts. But I've learned to let go of that perfect efficiency and realize you're going to have inefficiency, and that, yeah, not everything is an emergency. So I used to pack up immediately and go do that. I've gotten better now of, the guys on the ground can handle it. It's not a true emergency. Give them directions over the phone, and I'll see you on Tuesday or Wednesday like we had planned.
Yeah, I always try to remember, keep in mind that there was a time where we didn't have cell phones and we all survived anyway.
Yeah,
Like if it was,
that's huge. Yeah.
like let's say it's 1970 something and the water main things, the guys would have just turned it off and they would have maybe used the landline to phone the office, and maybe they could have got a hold of you, or maybe someone would have driven out to the site, but then they would have made decisions like, is it that big of an emergency for me to drive all the way out and find Nathan at the site? Like, probably not. They probably like I find that the closer we are to each other with the Zoom and our cell phones, um, we don't just take a moment and be like, you know, are the bikes in the front yard? That's probably where the kids are, and then it used to be easier and simpler in a way, but now we're so connected that we're like, all right, it's an emergency. Where are the kids? Where's Nathan? I got the water. No, shut the water off. I'll see you on Wednesday. So let's talk about capital a little bit. Flipping property. It's good that you got that investor online. What are you raising capital for these days? And are you even raising capital? Because having a main guy to kind of finance that, are you looking to scale more? Is that why you're looking for more capital, or
Yeah. Well, and
where
that,
does that fit in?
yeah, the main financing I'm getting is a hard money lender. So it's not a private money lender.
So you still
Um,
need the 20-30%.
well, I don't, but what I want is, rather than having to pay the renovations up front on my own money and take draws, is I've brought private money lenders in now to do that piece. So it used to be that I'd bring them in to do the 10%, 15% down. And a lot of them are willing to do that. For
Mm-hmm.
some reason, when I've phrased it as, okay, here's the deal, your money's already protected. I've got a hard money lender that's giving me 100% of the cost. They're giving me 100% of the rehab. I just have to front the cost. So I'm basically looking for gap funding or a bridge loan, where I go, if you fund that, you're going to get the same rate of return, but you're giving that money up front as a second mortgage, basically, to me. You can lean
Mm-hmm.
against the property that I've got going. You can lean it against lots that I have. I don't care. I secure everything with all of my
Mm-hmm.
private money investors. I always make sure it's a secure promissory note tied with, either in Texas, it's a deed of trust. That's our mortgage security. And so I do that. And what I'm looking for is for those people to give me the 150,000 up front, so I don't have to front it. And then that way I can continue to multiply and multiply. The hardest thing in flipping, as you know, if you were doing 12 at a time, I can't imagine doing 12 at a time. Like, that seems
It's
insane to
small
me.
potatoes, like if you buy them for like 100, put in like 30 or 50 grand, sell them for like 179, 200.
Yeah.
It is it is definitely like a stack of things. We just had a rule called one action per property per day. You can't let one go one day. Like, sometimes we trust our contractors to think, but it's just like one action per property per day. Even if it's on market, maybe that action is check to see that you're priced appropriately, and that's it. And check. So you always just touch everything one day. That's how you deal with more than 10 at a time.
Yeah. So the secondary thing, though, is, I'm sure, and is you get the cash flow crunch. And so that's what I'm trying to avoid,
Mhm.
is you get the influx when you sell, then you're buying the property, shelling out all the money for the rehab, and it goes back down again. And then it goes up again and it goes down again. So what I've found is, it's from running a business, it's more difficult to keep track when it's constantly just doing this. Like I'm trending upwards. I always am. My bank account gets larger, over the aggregate,
Yeah, it
but
looks
it
like
just does this.
inflation over time.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what I'm trying to do is get it to a point where, yeah, my money might cost me more. The projects might cost more because I'm paying more in financing, but to get it more linear. And when I can get it more linear, it helps me scale because I've got that money available. When the hardest thing in luxury is when you've got three going and then a home run comes across your plate and you go, what am I supposed to do? This one's got a
Yeah, because
$500,000
right now
spread on it.
you're funding the renovations with profits
Mm-hmm.
and then getting the draw when you're completed. So there's a
Exactly.
period of like, because a luxury flip isn't 50 grand on $100,000 house and 6 to 8 weeks of renovation. No, it's probably like 180, 280,
Mm-hmm.
$300,000 worth of materials and labor and 6 or 8 months,
Yep.
right?
Exactly.
So
So when
you've
you
got
got
a
three at the
tail of
same
capital.
time,
Yeah.
yeah.
Your acquisition, sometimes that could step on your acquisition toes. What we did is we just would wholesale more so we could always be a little bit flush, but
Which is key for me. I can't because in my market I'm one of the only ones. So if I'm wholesaling, for me I
you'd
don't
be
have
selling
that
it to
option.
yourself.
I'd be selling it to myself. It's me and maybe one other guy that does it. So that's what my goal is long term, is if I've got that fund sitting there, it's more of opportunity cost,
Yeah, so
and
you
that's
have
what I'm trying to mitigate.
yeah, you've got 100% funding, but in a structure that has you a little bit cash poor in the sense that you're putting your money in, which is, normal, and then getting it back when it's done. So you're more interested in like more partners. You want to use the money to build the business instead of in the business. You're looking to like,
Exactly. Yeah,
okay,
because if
cool.
if I
So
have three flips going at once, I can have $600,000 out in renovation, and so
oh
all of a
yeah.
sudden it makes me feel poor. I'm not. I've got all the equity in the homes, and when I
Yeah,
sell them, I'll be
it's in
fine.
the
But
tile. It's in
yeah,
the
it's in the
tile
tile. But I've got
line.
$600,000 in tile sitting amongst three, four houses, and so
Mhm.
if I can get that private money up front for those, that would help scale
And yeah,
tremendously.
definitely in Texas, definitely tile. So, um, what like there's a lot to talk about your story because it's interesting. At least it's interesting to me, and I think people will find it interesting because a lot of people aspire to get into the luxury flip game. Give people, if you could, I don't want you to scare people, but luxury flipping is not for the faint of heart. Okay. So if you could give people a little bit of a heads up or something that they can help navigate as they enter the game of luxury flipping, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah. So the number one thing, and it's going to seem kind of like a strange answer at first, but I promise it'll make sense, is you do everything in reverse with luxury. I need to find my buyer pool first and then purchase homes in that pool, right? So it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like when you're doing it with first time home buyers. And that's why a lot of people are drawn to that. They're like, well, yeah, first time home buyers in this market's 250. So that's where I'm going to go. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of similar in luxury, right? And so there's a difference that I mentioned earlier where I said what I do is high end slash luxury, but what I'm not doing are mansions. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
big difference there is I said I do 750 to about 1.2. Most of what I do is 750 to a million in my market. Everybody's market's different. That could mean 3 to 4 million in your market if you're in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
or if you're in Toronto, or you're in a big metropolitan. It can be, those numbers are very different. So what I look for is high income earners like doctors and lawyers who are, I'm not saying six figures, that's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about high level earners who are making 300 to 600 to a million, like surgeons making $1 million a year.
Close to seven figures.
Yes, close to seven figures or maybe right at seven figures, but they have to be high income earners, not business owners, entrepreneurs. And there's a huge difference there because what I look for is high income earners that don't have time. And so that's that range for me. If I go into 4 million, $5 million homes, those people who can buy a $5 million home can build a $5 million home. They
Yeah.
have the time
Because
to
that's
do
the
it.
tricky part about luxury is especially in the zone slightly below where you're at, those people are above that 350 mark and they're going to buy that house that you're going to renovate and likely will do it themselves. But then there's that next bracket where it's like, I'm so busy, I will, if I really don't like the kitchen in 6 months, the wife is on me. We'll just rip it all out then. But you know what? She likes the one that you did. So we're gonna buy that. We're gonna move in. We're gonna bring our little poodle and
Yeah.
we're gonna put it in the house. And yeah, maybe they have kids, maybe they don't, but a high income in that bracket, typically you can have a nice enough finishes and things like that they probably don't have kids. Do you find that you're having to cater to children in that price bracket at all?
It's surprising. I've tried to find a trend. I track every KPI imaginable. I have yet to find a trend in my home buyers other than the socioeconomic stuff. So I get retired people that are buying cash at a million, million two, and it's cash. They just don't want to be on their ranch anymore. They don't want
Yeah.
40 acres to take care of. They want to get closer to their grandkids. And they buy a house cash for 875 or 1.2 million. Then I get the young tech families who husband's making 500,000, wife's making 500,000 as a lawyer. And they do have a family of four and they want something big. They want something luxurious in a gated neighborhood with a community pool or their own pool. So I get that. It runs the gamut. But I'd
Busy is
say
the thing. Busy seems to be the thing.
busy.
None of them want to they don't want to buy that house for 550 and do the 6 to 8
Exactly.
month renovation and deal with the load bearing beam. Like they're at work.
Exactly. And every agent, when you're trying to purchase these homes, thinks that that's who they're going to sell to. You'll see it all the time. And so the two bits of advice that I'd give, going back to your question, is be patient and stick to your numbers because that's where you get really, really burned. There's two places you get burned in luxury. When you go, all right, I can pay 450 for this property, and they go, well, we got 8 buyers lined up, so if you can do 5, we'll take it. And you go, well, that only shrinks my margin from 250 to 2, so
But
I'll
if
take
that's
it.
the beginning,
But
that's the
that's where it
nibble.
starts. And yep. And then you go, I'm going to do marble instead of ceramic tile. And then I'm going to do quartzite instead of quartz countertops, which is a slight difference. But that all adds up. And all of a sudden, the 250 went to 2, goes to 150, goes to your first price drop, which your first
Yeah,
price drop in
because if
luxury is
people
much
don't,
higher.
yeah, it's not 5K, it's 50.
It's 50. And so all of a sudden you hit your first price drop and now you're looking at 100. And now you got to pay real estate commissions on $100,000 margin. And now you walk away with making 40 and you went, what
Which
the
is
heck
like,
went wrong?
I mean, still okay, but what you really nailed it is the fact that there's deals are like buses. There's another one coming. So if
Mm-hmm.
you, if they're like pressuring you to go up 450 to 500, like maybe it's just not for you. If you stick to your guns, you'll still be cash ready for the one that comes up next week.
Yeah.
Like it's the desperation in the buy, it's the desperation all the way through that ends up nibbling your renovation budget. And then suddenly, because here's the thing about flipping, and you probably know this very well, is like sometimes everybody gets paid but you, because
Mm-hmm.
everyone else must get paid and you're the only optional person to get paid. Like your contractors, they're not waiting around. They must get paid. The real estate agent, they're not transacting the house unless they're paid. The lawyers, they're not doing it unless they're getting paid. So at the end of the game in flipping, we're the only ones that are on that are optional. So uh, interesting thing, because about the hotel management. I want to ask this one last question because we're a little bit long, but I'm interested, so we're gonna run it as long as I want. But um, what's the secret sauce? What do you feel like what comes easy to you that other people might find difficult in this space?
Yeah. So I think this is where the hotel background actually, you nailed it, prefacing the question. Is I'm extremely personable and I get highly, highly involved in the sales process. So while I'm there every single day and I'm, doing quality control, every flipper is doing that. You have to, or you're not going to be successful. But I
Yeah.
think what sets me apart is almost every home that I sell, I'd say 80% of the homes that I sell, I met that buyer before we transacted or before the offer was made. So I'll make any excuse to be there. If it's a second showing, I'm there. Like I'll show up
Oh,
because
I'm
I'm
changing a light bulb.
exactly. I'm changing the light bulb.
Yeah, my
I'm
mentor used to
skimming the
do that.
pool.
He
I
would
show up.
Yeah, he would
And I
get in
talked to
there
him.
and try to close. He'd start getting in there and he'd try to like really nail that buyer down.
Yeah, I'm highly involved. And so I list most of them myself or through a buddy of mine who I do a flat rate commission with. And so I handle all the phone calls. I'm handling all of that because nobody wants to sell your house like you do. And
Yeah,
an
you're kind of
agent's
like a
best,
developer.
yeah. And an agent's
Yeah.
best friend is a price drop. And I don't want that because that affects my pocket. So it's like,
Oh,
that's
we need that
every
on the
agent's,
t-shirt.
yeah, every agent's best friend is a price drop. And so for me, I go, no, I'm going to be in charge of this conversation. So I build the trust, and I think that's huge in this space is you build the trust with that buyer. I give them my cell phone number, even while they're viewing the home. Hey, if you want to get over here and you don't want your agent following you or something like that, I get it. Sometimes you feel like, it's like a little puppy following you around. If you
Hmm.
want to meet just you and I sometime, here's my cell phone number. Happy to meet you out at the property. Once the process is ongoing, they still have my cell phone number. So when the inspection report comes back, yes, I'm dealing with the agent. We're nailing down what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. But then I can have a direct line. I go, hey, look, I understand that this is where this line item came in from. But if I do that, I have to tear off the entire outside facade to fix that. So why don't I
Yeah.
change that from replacing that window to I'll put a 10-year warranty on that window should it ever leak. I have to fix that. And usually they're like, oh, okay. So you can get more creative with the solutions. And then lastly, once I close, they still have my cell phone because I want first right of refusal if that beam does start to bow. I don't want their first call to their lawyer. I want their first call to me. And then they
Yeah.
say,
So
hey, Nathan,
you're kind of warranting your houses and
100%.
hands on your houses in a kind of way a developer would be dealing with their house.
100%. And when you do that and you
Interesting.
built that trust factor, those buyers will go, you know what? We loved the house, but once we met you, and this isn't me toting myself, it's by design. I'm doing this structured, for a purpose. Once we met you, we felt way more comfortable and confident in the process. And because you gave us your cell phone number and we know we can call you, guess what? They all call me. They all call me or they all text me. And if it's something very minimal, nope, no problem. I'll send my guys out there. My guys are
Yeah,
already
it's
working
one
on
of
all
the
my
tiles is
projects.
lifting. Yeah, one of the tiles is
Yeah.
lifting in the hallway.
And when
Right
you
away.
do that, they immediately like, this is awesome. Like, this is awesome. Every time I call this guy, he answers my phone call. And I tell them you get that for a year. And I go, after a year, I'll still get back to you, but it might be slower. It's not going to be my priority. But for one full year, you got my cell phone to call me about anything. Because, yeah, if all of a sudden I got flex in a beam, there's a whole second story above it, I'm going to get in there. And if I can fix it for 10 grand, I've already made 140 on the project. I
Hmm.
chalk that off to another expense line. Now I made 130, but I didn't get sued for 2 million. And that's
Yeah.
huge for me.
Yeah, and especially when it comes down to as soon as the lawyers get involved, we always try to like to transact those problems with the property with the owners, the new owners. Like if we can avoid any sort of extra transactional or extra like purple monkey dishwasher, they said this and then they contact us and it goes back through four people. Just like, yeah, I'll be there
Yeah.
to take a look at
That's
the
so
water's
funny.
leaking. Yeah.
You nailed it. I say that all. That's one of my favorite things to say. Is like, remember in kindergarten when we played telephone, and
Yeah,
one
it
person
goes
starts
buck,
on this
buck,
end and
buck,
I'm on the
buck.
other end. I'm like, that's what happens. It goes buyer to agent to agent to seller, and in that thing, it starts with, "Hey, we're not really a fan of the color of the paint in the kitchen," and then on the other end, you get told they hate the paint in the house and they want the house repainted, and that's not
Yeah.
what they said. They said they didn't
That's
like the
nothing
paint
what
color in the
yeah, that's
kitchen.
nothing what they said. It was just like, or the paint is just like it needs another coat. Could be simple.
Yeah,
So um again, like we could go on all day and I think people if they really want to go on all day, they should reach out to you,
yeah.
contact you, get in touch with you. How do they do that? How do they follow you? You'd mentioned you're really active on social.
Yeah, so Renovate with Nate is my handle on Instagram. I put out a lot of content there as well. I've got local real estate meetups and stuff, and my goal is always to provide true value. I think there's a lot of people. This is why I really like you guys as well, and I listen to you guys all the time because you guys actually give real value. I mean, you have stuff that you're also selling, but you also give the answers, and like that's
Hmm.
huge to me. And so I do the same thing. I'm like, I'm going to give you all the answers, and you can email me. It's Shona Investments LLC at gmail.com. And strangely enough, this doesn't scare me at all. I give out my cell phone number all the time.
Yeah.
And it's 760-803-5921. I've done it on another podcast as well. 5 people contact me, so I'm not scared of it. So
Yeah.
if
I
you want to
mean,
call me, I'll talk to you.
Exactly. And realtors put their phone number on signs all day. So like, why
Yeah.
not? Right.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate the time, and anyone looking to get into the luxury flip, I think there's at least 5 or 6 gems. You got to drop this episode in ChatGPT and have it drawing out the action points here, because we were putting on a little bit of a seminar here. So really appreciate the time, Nathan, and yeah, I'm gonna jump on my Instagram and check out your reels right away.
Awesome. I appreciate
So
it. Thank you so much.
yeah, no problem. Until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.